Hi, my name is Renee. I am leaving for South by Southwest tomorrow, and I am anxious, so let's talk about it. And first of all, big shout out to Tide and Procter & Gamble for gifting me this trip. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and even though I am anxious about the whole thing, I am also very excited and exceptionally grateful, so thanks. But yes, I have had anxiety practically my whole life. I started experiencing panic attacks and anxiety attacks around 7 years old, and I didn't find out what they actually were until I was about 13 years old. It was a very confusing time in my life. And then in my late teens, I was officially diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, which is described by Johns Hopkins medicine by meaning that you are constantly worrying and you can't control the worrying. Now, the difference between a panic attack and an anxiety attack is that a panic attack usually happens a lot more suddenly and is a lot more intense, whereas anxiety attacks develop more slowly and can last for longer. But something that they both have in common is that they both really suck. When I was younger, I would get panic attacks more commonly, and as I've gotten older, it's more common that I get anxiety attacks. And that bit about them lasting potentially days, weeks, months, yeah, very accurate. Like, I'll have stretches of time where I have zero anxiety whatsoever, and it's wonderful. And then I have other times where my anxiety is triggered, and it's anyone's guess what's going to happen next. Two of the ways that my anxiety manifests are in travel anxiety and event anxiety, and South by Southwest is both of those things. So before I go on a trip or I have a big event coming up, I get very, very anxious. Usually it will start weeks before the event, and the anxiety just builds and builds and builds until right before the event happens. I pretty much just start worrying about all of the possibilities of everything that could go wrong. Like, what if there's bad weather? What if my flight is delayed or canceled? What if I forget something important? And the way that I cope with that anxiety is by planning, because for me, sitting with my anxiety doesn't help. Taking action does. But I'm not talking like a normal level of planning. Like, my anxiety will take it to a whole nother level, and I do honestly have to be careful to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. Let me explain. So when you go on sponsored trips like this, they generally send you some sort of an itinerary, like where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, your contact people, all that sort of stuff. So not only do I have a copy of that in my email and saved as a screenshot on my phone, but I bring a physical copy as well. And sometimes a mini copy that I printed really small and then glued onto cardstock so that I could keep it in my wallet with me at all times, just in case I lose all of the other ones or my phone. I also make lists, so many lists. I have a to-do list, a to-bring list, a to-wear list that is broken down by each individual event that I have, and I have checked and rechecked the weather forecast for my destination at least 3 or 4 times, and I will do it one more time before I leave too, because weather is always changing. So I am 99% packed already for this trip. It is midday the day before. I don't leave until tomorrow morning, but I am still packing because I am checking and rechecking everything to make sure I didn't forget anything. I have also been making sure that I've been keeping track of eating on time, because I also have ADHD and one of my symptoms is time blindness. So if I don't pay attention to what I'm eating, sometimes I will forget. So I'm paying attention to my eating, paying attention to my hydration. Side note, if you're watching this, drink some water. I know I'm not your mom and I can't make you do it. However, you know that you should. Making sure I'm taking my meds on time, making sure that I am going to bed earlier than I normally would. And despite all of that planning and all of that preparation, I have still had near debilitating anxiety about this trip for the last few days. Because I consciously know that no matter how much planning I do, there is still a chance that something can go wrong. But I try my best not to focus on that thought. So in between packing, I have been watching some of my favorite shows and just trying to distract the bad negative thoughts out of my head. All of this to say, I'm not doing the best right now, but I'm still able to make a video talking about it. And that is entirely because despite the fact that I have generalized anxiety disorder and I have to deal with all of this, and it is so much extra work for me to get here, I'm still doing it. I'm still going to South by Southwest, and I am still incredibly excited about it. And by the time I get there, I will have so many exciting distractions and adrenaline running through my body that usually once I am at the event, I'm fine. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is that I am, to the outside world, a very outgoing person. I am very personable. I love talking to people. I genuinely do. But I am also acutely aware of the fact that the way that I present myself to the world means that a lot of people don't realize that these are the things that I struggle with. This is how much work it takes just for me to be able to get somewhere. And granted, depending on how big the event is or how far I'm traveling, my anxiety might be more or might be less, but it is like this every single time. And the only reason why I am able to deal with it as well as I am is because I have a wonderful support system and I actively work on my mental health. I know that the situation is very triggering for me, so the first thing I did was jump into action and start using my coping skills. I've been practicing self-care by making sure that I am eating, hydrating, taking my meds, and sleeping enough. So essentially, I know that I can come across as neurotypical passing, but I'm not. I have an anxiety disorder and I have ADHD, and yes, they do impact my life and they disable me in some ways. But that's the entire point. People who may be struggling on the inside do not always show it outwardly. And I just think it's important for me to share my story so that people know that. So to anybody else who struggles with anxiety or any similar situation like this, I know it's easier said than done, but you got this. And I'll see y'all at South by Southwest.